recording. What's up, guys? Alex, ALP Entertainment, with the co-host. Welcome back, my brother, Luke. Say what's up to people.
What up?
Guys, it's a new year. New year, new leaf, new everything. We got a lot to talk about today. I took a lot of notes. Just got to welcome you back, man. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. A lot has happened in the first 11 days of this new year, both sports and non-sports wise. But we're a sports talk show, so we're going to talk about the things that have happened in the sports world.
Yeah, and we're going to dive deep. I just got to shout out, thanks to Colin for stepping in. Good episode, good response. It was a good time. So Colin, if you're listening, I appreciate you, man. Hopefully your flight and travel back to Hawaii was good, and we'll see you soon. But we have more important business to take care of right now. Do you want to talk about college football playoffs, or do you want to talk about the greatest upset in the century?
We'll get the lesser out of the way. We'll talk about college football playoffs.
All right, simple enough.
I mean, hindsight's 2020, and you can't change anything. Obviously, the best two teams at the end should have been Georgia versus Michigan, but we got a Washington versus Michigan, and they kept it close for a little bit in that championship game, but then eventually, Michigan did Michigan things. They bullied their way on the line with super average quarterback play. They basically just beat them with muscle and willpower on their offense and defensive lines.
I will say, I am on record. I'll admit when I'm wrong. I expected Bama to beat Michigan. I did say that. I did say it was going to be a last-second field goal, only considering the fact that I thought Bama was going to do that to Michigan. I really did, knowing the SEC, how they play. But I think that also shows that the Big Ten is different, right? And we are neck and neck with the SEC.
I think it proved that we play a different style of football than anyone else. But that style of football is arguably the toughest, just the most, I don't know what other word to use, just the toughest style of football to play against and to play for. So any team that, even the lesser or the middle teams in the Big Ten, like the Rutgers and the Illinois and stuff, like when other schools have to play them, they're usually surprised by, man, these guys are extremely physical.
I have to ask, so one of my main questions I was going to start the episode with, now that like the NIL thing going on right now, I don't even know what to call it, organization pretty much at this point. So with NIL going on, and even like players committing to the NFL draft before their bowl game, do you believe that bowl games are becoming less watchable and less enjoyable?
Yes. I would just say probably yes, but it's going to definitely help with this expanded playoffs to keep a lot of these players from entering transfer portal early or declaring for the draft early. Basically, if you're not in the top four, like Florida State and Ohio State and Texas, all those teams that were right on the cusp of getting into that 14 playoff, immediately when they found out that they weren't, they had a huge haul of players enter the transfer portal or declare for draft.
And that was my point to the question is, I personally don't want to see that.
It makes the games way less competitive, way less likable to watch.
So you're telling me you spent the entire preseason, fall camp, going through that all the entire season, winning your conference championship, just to choose to sit out your final game, like your bowl game, the one that you pretty much worked so hard for. I understand the risk to reward isn't there with the injury. I understand that, but the players that have gotten injured in their final game of their senior year or even bowl game are still being drafted, and they're still having luxurious careers in the NFL because of modern medicine. So I thought, for me personally, that I found myself not watching as many bowl games as I have in recent time. I don't know if it's because I've been paying more attention to the people opting out of the bowl games. Like, I don't know what it was.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't pay attention to a single bowl game, the football aspect of any bowl game this year. I only followed a handful of the bowl games because of just the theatrics and the mascots and like the post and pre-game things that they were doing, which makes the bowl games so fun, which is why people don't want to see them go away. And for a bigger reason for me, this expanded playoff, the 12-team playoff, one of my favorite parts about that is that we will get to hold on to some of these bowl games and the meaning behind them, and we'll have less and less players bailing, quitting, just straight up quitting. Even if you're transferring, you're quitting on that team.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. I was looking at we'll switch to Washington now, like Washington versus Michigan, obviously. But when I was watching the Washington-Texas game, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. You were in Mexico, right, at that time?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I just saw clips and highlights and stuff.
I'll tell you, Michael Penix looked spectacular. He was hitting every receiver in stride, was like deadly accurate. Kudos to Texas, as much as I hate to say that. Texas looked really good as well, kept up with them. You can't beat a dude that was a runner-up in the Heisman and probably should have won the Heisman. Like, you can't.
No, if he has more than 4 seconds, 3 seconds, like if he has a decent time in the pocket, he is the best quarterback in college football, accuracy included. And unfortunately, they kind of hit a wall when they played Michigan, and their offensive line could only hold up so much against just the constant rotation of the largest men that these guys have ever seen, like coming at them. And so you knew that Penix was going to be pressured a lot and in trouble a lot, and you just hope that he had the gamemanship to overcome some of that stuff, but it wasn't. It wasn't possible.
Yeah, I did love the aggression from both teams, especially in the first. The second half was pretty stagnant. It was kind of boring. I'll tell you, in the first quarter, especially going in the second quarter, that I felt the aggression was like beautiful by both teams. They were going for it on fourth downs. Like, they were, if it's third and long, it's like, we're going to run the ball and get closer so we can get closer and go for it. Like, they treated every possession as a fourth down possession. I really like that, especially when, this is the last game. Like, all your chips on the table. You got to do what you got to do. I did love that about the game. I did not really understand Washington's game plan towards Michigan. Like, they try to run the ball a couple times with a running back that has a messed up knee and a messed up ankle that was having to get pain injections on the sideline pregame. Like, at that point, you just got to sit the dude. Like, have the hard conversation and be like, hey, dude, you're just not physically able to go. It is tough. I'll tell you, too, that in the first quarter, Penix missed that wide open touchdown. And that really hurt him. I think after he missed that wide open touchdown, he overthrew him by 1 or 2 yards. If he would have connected, I think the momentum switch would have happened and the momentum change would have shifted. But I think that his missed throw really hurt Washington's chances.
Yeah, you can't, when you play really anyone in the Big Ten, specifically Michigan, you don't have many opportunities to make mistakes. Just the way that they play football, how methodical they are with the football, and they don't create mistakes. They play a safe. It's hard to explain. It's like an aggressive and relentless style of football, but also like a safe style of football, because they're not launching it all over the field. They don't have a good quarterback. AJ McCarthy is an average, and I would even say sometimes below average quarterback. They had 2 great running backs, one greater than the other, the Connor guy.
And then Blake Corum.
Or Blake Corum, that's what I was trying to say. And then it was really just, it literally all relied on their linebackers, offensive line, and defensive line. So, yeah, I mean, everyone knew the style that they were going to play when they came in. They knew exactly how they were going to play. And, I mean, it's worked for them all season, hence why they finished the season undefeated.
I did read that this is the completely off topic. I don't know if you follow this as much as probably I do, but this is the first college football final with a Nike versus Adidas team.
It was the first time an Adidas team made the college football championship in the CFP era.
Yeah, and I know that's like huge for them. I mean, whatever. I don't think people care about that as much as like.
I just thought that was a fun fact I saw too. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that. I did. With the physicality of Michigan against Washington really showed from just the jump. Like, felt from the immediate first play of Michigan of just running it down their throats. As soon as Michigan went up 14-0, I was like, oh yeah, dude, like this. To our friend Keyshawn's point, like in our group chat, he had texted out and was like, this game's gonna be over by halftime. I didn't want to give Michigan that much credit the benefit of the doubt of blowing them out like Georgia did to TCU last year, but I will say I was pretty disappointed by second half. I don't think that it was monumental in any way. Obviously, Michigan scored more with the run game and just sealed the deal, but I don't think that, and Penix did get hurt. It looked like he probably bruised some ribs or broke some ribs, but I think Michigan's physicality, to your point, was the winner, was the reasoning why they won.
I mean, it literally beat every team they played that year, like including Ohio State. And you can possibly argue Ohio State might be slightly better than Washington, but if not just around the same skill level. But yeah, no, it's the way they played all year. It's worked for them all year, and they weren't gonna. I sure hope to God they wouldn't have changed it for the championship game, and they didn't. And it's not an exciting style of football. It's Big Ten football. We're used to Big Ten West football. It's a lot of punts, field goals, and then an occasional here or there touchdown. And that's kind of how they beat Washington.
I also do believe that defense wins championships. Coming from a player and coming from a coach, I believe defense wins championships, and I do believe that Michigan's defense was the X factor in that game. I think that Washington knew that Michigan was going to come at them, running the ball, being physical, but I didn't believe that Washington had a game plan for Michigan's physical linebackers, D-line, and even their corners. Like, I think Michigan's defense, top to bottom, was like spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, you can only game when you know a team's going to be more stronger and more physical than you. There's not really much you can game plan around that. And if you do have a game plan, it's probably only going to work for the first half or for a small portion of it.
Yeah.
It sucks to say, but it's just the bigger, stronger people won. And so in order to beat Michigan, you have to do some gimmick plays. You have to have big chunk plays. You have to have, just those big long plays that you can't expect to out physical Michigan because they're going to out physical you. So Penix needed to do more, and their skill players needed to do more. But yeah, it wasn't a terrible game. At least they made it like somewhat competitive.
Yeah, I just was hoping for a better game than it was last year, and it definitely turned out. Where do you think Harbaugh goes now? Like, there's so much speculation with all the 7 or 8 NFL coaches that have been fired or let go, that his name is the hot name out there, other than now Mike Vrabel, but Jim Harbaugh has been linked to going to the Chargers.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, you didn't think at the time that Alabama was going to have a vacancy at the coaching position, but we're all assuming that he's going to try and jump ship out of college football and head to the NFL. With him, I think he needs some skill players. I don't think he's wanting to take a team and completely rebuild from the ground up, kind of like where the Patriots are at. And so
I agree.
Coaching positions, even with where Tennessee is at, to be honest, I mean, they just don't have a ton of talent on Tennessee either. And so the only two places that you can really think of would be Atlanta, and then the bigger name that everyone thinks is going to happen would be the LA Chargers.
I agree, man. Like, I was reading a little bit about, I think we both are in agreement that when Mike Vrabel let go, I think that shocked the NFL world.
Yeah, I don't think any of the other coaches or other GMs or anything were expecting that.
I do see him going to the Patriots. I do believe that Vrabel goes to the Patriots and he takes the now former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith with him to be like the D coordinator for Vrabel. I think that that's a match made in heaven because Vrabel did play for the Patriots, has a very good relationship with Belichick. I know obviously Belichick's gone, but Robert Kraft as well. So I think that's the match made in heaven, in my opinion, for if you're going to go perfect fit. It's the way to go. I think Harbaugh goes to the Chargers. And I think Atlanta goes and gets somebody like a Kellen Moore, who's the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. They go get some offensive-minded coach.
Yeah, I think the Falcons, and I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, they're going to be left with picking up just the best offense or defensive coordinator from some other teams. They're not going to be able to land the big name. That's why I said the only other person that I could potentially see would be Harbaugh going to Atlanta, but I think it's pretty set, at least from the rumor mill that we hear, that it's going to be a LA Chargers, if anyone. But I hope that the Falcons find someone that actually wants to use their skill players.
Dude, I was having a conversation with somebody today about like the Falcons with Desmond Ridder. Like
no, they need to drop Desmond Ridder and they need to keep Taylor Heineke as their backup and they need to draft a new quarterback.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, dude, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke are both the exact same person. They're the same quarterback.
Taylor Heineke is a better quarterback. He's more quarterbacky, as we've heard that word used this past couple weeks. He is more quarterbacky than Desmond Ridder, and I would definitely trust him to be the backup more than I would Ridder. But no, they have to draft a quarterback this year, or hopefully, if they can't find someone good enough to draft, or they fall too far down, like maybe they can pick up a free agent in the off season or something. But they can't run with the two quarterbacks that they have now, that's for sure.
Too much young talent on that team.
They have 5 of like the top 20 skill players in the NFL. They have 2 of the best tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts. They have one of the best running backs who's on a rookie deal still. They have
you still have Drake London, who's a young wide receiver.
Drake London, one of the best in the league.
Like you have a good, solid defense.
Yeah, and a great defense. And you play in a dome. So find a quarterback that can sling the rock and knows how to run an offense. Desmond Ridder's not that guy. So, like, you don't need to hit a home run with your next quarterback. You need someone that can manage all these skill players that you have and get them the ball.
I'm curious what your thoughts on, like, obviously this is a long-term idea. NFL draft comes end of March, early April, sometimes even early May. I would love for us to do like a NFL draft board, like we do our own like mock draft.
Yeah, I would be down for that. It'll be
because at that time the NFL draft, like picks 1 through 12 have already been finalized in the NFL draft. So like it'd be cool for us to have Keyshawn on again, and we can just talk about like we can just run it down, picks 1 through 31, 32, and just go from there. I think it'd be a good time.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that'll be good. There's it's going to be an interesting draft, the first round at least, with just all the teams that have double up picks and who's potential to trade picks
or even all the quarterbacks that are available.
Yeah, it's going to be the players coming in from college. There's a couple of them that are generational talents. It's not as heavy of a draft with talent as in past years, but just with the makeup of who's drafting and where they're drafting and what these teams need, and like just the drama that's going to ensue with all of this in the first round. Like, I'm down for that kind of a segment because it's going to get interesting.
Awesome. I want to let you guys know we're going to take a quick break. Come back and we're talking about Nebraska basketball. And we're back. Now, our favorite time of the segment, getting to talk about the greatest upset in the century. Not really, but for us, Nebraska basketball fans, it was
the greatest upset in Nebraska basketball for sure in this century.
Since 1982.
Yeah, the closest we came, 2002, we almost beat number 1 Kansas, and that was the last time that we had a shot against a number 1 team. Before that, it was 84, and that was on the road against Missouri. or was that the home one? In '84 they lost or they won on the road against the number one team, and then the last time that they won against a number one team at home was 1964.
Wow. I did not know that. I thought it was 82, but you're probably right, to be quite honest with you.
82 was we won on the road. At 64, Nate, his dad, my grandpa, call him Grandpa Dave. He was a student at that game
No free
in
shout outs.
'64.
No free shout outs.
No free shout outs. Well, I just Nate told me that stat after I was texting him after we upset the number one team in the country, Purdue, yesterday. And he threw me that stat, and he's like, your grandpa was at that game as a student, and it just reminded me how old he is. But
dude, let me tell you, when we were watching that game, my wife and I were watching the game. I was like, you ever seen that meme of someone sitting up in the chair? Like, that was me. I sat up in the chair the entire game. I was sitting up, and she was underneath the blanket, and she went to like grab something on my back or something like that. And she goes, "You are like really like hot." And I was like, "Well, yeah, dude. Like, I'm super into this game. This is probably the most focused I've been on a Nebraska basketball game ever. Like, I am burning up because I'm so laser focused of this game."
well, yeah, the game didn't really give you any breathers. It was back and forth, back and forth. The few runs really that Purdue gave us, Nebraska was able to answer it and then some every time. It was a crazy game, an enjoyable game. We didn't do anything stupid to kind of rip your heart apart or anything. It was just an all around, by far our best game that we've played all season.
I would agree. We
against the best team, which is nice.
We played. I know we played lights out. We shot lights out. I will tell you. I was watching pregame, and they interviewed Fred Hoiberg about like, what's your game plan of how you're going to do this, like. And I think Hoiberg and Matt Rhule have the same approach of mastering the fundamentals, honing in on these little key details of the game, like where the big reason why we won against K-State and lost against Wisconsin the way we did was active hands on the defensive end. We weren't picking at the ball like we did against K-State. And so going into that Purdue game, we had to be physical on defense.
Yeah, the rotations and our scrambling and our hands in the air, hands high up in the air. That's what Rank Mast talked about before and after the game, what was so critical, because against Purdue, against Zach Edey, unless you have another person that looks like Zach Edey, you have to double him. And so doubling him is going to leave a player open every single time. And as long as you have good rotation and you know where all the key players are at and everyone's talking, like, you can handle that stuff and you can get contested shots. But yeah, really the game plan was to annoy the hell out of Zach Edey, double team him, and then sprint to the kick out as fast as we can. And they made us pay a couple times. That's what the number one team in the country is expected to do. Like, they weren't going to just lie down and die. And I was glad that they didn't. It just showed us that we had that same fight, that we can beat any team in the country, even when they're playing relatively good.
Yeah, and that was the thing that a lot of people I've talked to that watched the game. It's, Purdue did not have a bad game. Like, no, we just had an amazing game.
We did shut down. Zach Edey almost came up with, if he didn't, I think he may have got a double-double. It was like 11 or 13 points and then like 7 or 8 or 9 rebounds. And so he was close to that double-double. But at halftime, he had 4 points, and it was pretty much the second straight year of
4 points, 2 turnovers, and 3 fouls.
That was his total stat.
At half.
At half, yeah.
Yep.
So, kudos to Nebraska, both this year and last year. We completely shut down as much as you can shut down Zach Edey. And if you do remember, if you saw, we should have beat Purdue last year as well. There was a terrible, terrible call at the end of the game. Even the announcers, the guys on ESPN, everyone knows it. And that game should have been won by us again last year. And I'm glad we didn't forget about it. And we came out this year and shut them down again. It was really cool. I don't know if you saw, Derek Walker was at the game. He was one of the first guys to congratulate Rank Mast and congratulate the fellas on the win. One of the first out there to storm the court. And that honestly, it gave me goosebumps, and it made me super happy because we've had talent in the past couple of years at Nebraska, but Derek Walker was the person that kick-started this culture. The grind, nose to the floor, just the correct culture, the defensive culture, the tenacity that Nebraska is playing with this year. He's the one that implemented that when he came here.
Dude, I felt like we were literally just dogs in the first half. Like flying around, diving for loose balls, being physical on offense, being physical on defense, like kind of like you said, just double teaming, even triple teaming Edey quite a bit, getting underneath his skin. I know Rank Mass was on record as saying like I was just trying to annoy him. I was just trying to kind of get in his head. And I don't know if you remember watching, but like is at the end of the second half where I think Edey got blocked or we hit it off of him and it went out of bounds. And Edey like took the ball and like slammed it and then it was like biting on his jersey. Like obviously that was so late in the game, and I think Purdue already kind of accepted their fate. But if you look at his body language and just how we were defensively game planning against him, it was phenomenal from Nebraska.
Yeah, we frustrated him early, um, and we did everything that we needed to do in the game plan to stop him, and then basically make their 4 and 3 guards win the game for them, step up for them, and they did. They came up clutch a couple of times. Like I said, as a number one team, you would expect them to do, but for the most part, we shut down Edey and then also kept their other top scorers out of the game as well.
I know we talked before we started recording, and for those who do not have Peacock, I did download Peacock and use the free trial to watch this game. I'm going to cancel my membership once my free trial is over with. But
or better yet, you should listen to the radio call with Kent Pavelka and Jake Muehlheisen. You can go to Huskers.com, go to replay. There's a button that says replay. You click that. You scroll down to men's basketball, and then there's a list of the basketball games played this year. Scroll all the way down to Purdue, and you can listen. You can skip ahead wherever you want to go. You can literally just listen to the last 5-6 minutes of the game. It's one of the greatest radio calls in Nebraska basketball history.
I will have to do that honestly because I did not catch it.
I mean, it gives you goosebumps. It leaves you lost for words because you can feel it in both of their voices. But with Kent Pavelka, he said it hit me super hard because he said I'm having flashbacks to '82, calling Nebraska basketball game when we beat the number one team on the road, and then he goes, I'm also having flashbacks to '64 when I was a young kid and I was at that game as a young kid, and he's like, I never thought that I would call one game, let alone all of these games for all these years. And it's just it makes you happy to see him happy because all he wants to see is Nebraska basketball to be good. He could have retired 10 years ago if he wanted. He's really old.
I will say when I was watching the Peacock stream, so Peacock does a good job, I will say, of showing all pregame stuff, like everything. I watched the national anthems. I watched the lineup announcement. I thought they did a really good job of showing pretty much everything to give you that experience of you're actually there, like you're actually at the game. I'll say that was a good stream. But one thing that bothered me is I'm gonna go ahead and cuss a little bit. Fuck that dude. That I don't know if it was a hot mic by accident or what had happened, but
it was definitely by accident. But you're talking about Robbie Hummel, who was
caught on hot mic saying this crowd is pretty lackluster today. I'm pretty disappointed. I'm thinking it might just be the snow. Keep in mind we did just get hit by about 3 to 4 inches of snow,
and it was January 10th, and students don't come back until January 22nd. And so when that game tipped off, there was some empty seats because of people that just couldn't make it because of the weather, but it was pretty much full. And
I mean,
they said,
yeah, even if you looked at the crowd, like you could see maybe like 1 or 2 spots empty here and there, but like
it was a lot of bank employees, huddle employees,
yeah,
and then a mixture of just people who randomly got tickets, and then the diehard Nebraska basketball fans that will literally go to any home game, no matter what the weather is or who they're playing. And from what it sounds like, the videos that I've seen and from watching it on TV, it sounds like that was one of the loudest crowds that we've had all year.
It felt electric. I watched, like I said, watched every single second of it. I was gonna ask you. Obviously, we're biased with going to these games and being Nebraska basketball fans. Um, I do believe that a huge X factor in this game. Obviously, I'm not going to take anything away from the guys, how they played, Coach Hoiberg and his staff of the game plan. They drew up it perfectly to a T. Um, I also don't think that Purdue expected the Pinnacle to be rocking as much as it was. Like we Nebraska fans, it almost felt like a no sit. I don't even think they ever sat down.
They said, at least Robin Washut, the guy that covers Nebraska basketball for the most part, um, he said that no sit Sunday against Wisconsin is kind of in its own tier, its own category. But he said if there was the next tier, this game, the Purdue game, he said the atmosphere, just the electricness of the crowd and everyone being like the crowd really never died the entire
Never.
game. And so he said that yes, it's probably one of the best atmospheres he's ever been to, excluding that no sit Sunday, which I was at that game and I don't think anything is ever going to compare to that. But
I see. I watched it at home. But the Purdue game, like when I was watching it, we would go up by 4 or 6 points. We'd hit a three. Purdue would hit one back. As soon as Purdue hit that three back, it was like everyone screaming on defense. Like it was silent for about a good 1-2 seconds so we can get the ball going up the court again. But it was like as soon as the ball hit cross court, it was like boom,
but
loud noises, cheering.
You have to think. I mean, you have to give credit to coaching staff and the players for having that mindset, knowing, all right, we're going to go on a run. This is the number one team in the country. So unless lightning strikes on the floor right now, they're also going to go on a run. And how are you going to deal with that mentally? How are you when you go up on a 6-point run and then they hit you with a 7-point run? Are you going to sit down and complain about it and say, oh shit, like here we go, or like it's over? Like no, they didn't have that. Every time they barely slipped below like a 1 or 2 point lead. If not, it was just tied at most. But anytime they came with a run, Nebraska immediately answered. So that game, it just made me happy watching it from start to finish. You were sitting up in your chair. I was literally standing up in my living room for like pretty much the whole second half. I was standing up.
Feet were just killing you after your adrenaline calmed down.
Just pacing back and forth, complaining to myself, screaming to myself. It was just me. So
it was a spectacular game. I know you have been saying previous episodes how big of a fan like of Casey you are, and even like I think you said Sam Hoiberg kind of a couple times. I don't think I'm gonna call him Sam I am. Hoiberg does not get the amount of love and appreciation he deserves. I think he deserves so much more, especially after this game. The dude's defense is spectacular. I think he's probably our best defender. I could be wrong.
He's the first one. If it's not Alec or Juwan Gary, he's the first one diving on the floor for loose balls. He knows where he's supposed to be, and he knows where everyone else is supposed to be at every point of the game. And
but
so
he's got that silent. He's a silent shooter too. Like he can score.
He's very quietly efficient with his offense.
Yes.
And when you put him in there, you're like, all right, we're taking away a little bit of offense when he comes in for like a Jamarcus Lawrence or maybe even a Casey or a Bryce Williams. You're like, all right, we're giving up some offense, but then he proves you wrong and he goes ahead and gets 2 pick sixes and gets layups and on the other side, or he hits a couple threes and he's efficient. He doesn't take a lot of shots because he knows that the guys around him are the ones that need to be taking those shots, and he knows where there's a better shot.
I know that Rank Mass can hit threes. Like we space the floor so he can. I will tell you, when I saw Josiah Alec go to the corner, I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like gripping.
It was
chair.
The fourth three of the year this year for him. So that was a very.
He was the only. I will say, I actually looked up the stat after the game. He was the one of 2 only players that did not go in double digits. I think Josiah had 5, and I think someone else had 9.
He was one of 7 players to hit a 3 in that game.
Yes,
that's ridiculous. Josiah. Yeah, 7 players hit a 3-pointer in that game. I think we hit 13 or 14 total in the game. out of like 26 or 28, so extremely efficient.
Can we just like show more love to the governor of Nebraska with Casey Tominaga of just shooting in the face with hand in his face of every single defender that touched him?
Yeah, it's pretty insane to watch a player and to be surprised and gasp when he shoots it and it doesn't go in. Like there's not many players you can think of. That is quite literally why his nickname is the Japanese Steph Curry. Like Steph Curry has that ability when he shoots it and he misses it, you're surprised.
And it's he's gotten so much praise. I watched post game on Peacock. I watched that stream. I did go watch Scott Van Pelt on ESPN right after too. Scott Van Pelt praised him.
I stayed up late that night because I just wanted to see Scott Van Pelt talk about Nebraska basketball.
Dude, like it seems that even on Twitter, like non-Nebraska Twitters and just non-Nebraska fans are just praising Keisei Tominaga and just like his shooting abilities.
All these people are saying he's the most exciting player in the Big Ten, if not the most exciting player in all of college basketball, because he shoots ridiculously long and contested threes, but he makes more than he misses. Like those shots.
I think it's because he did do a camp with Steph Curry. Steph Curry has been known to have a release that is on record 0.4 seconds. That's how fast Steph shoots the ball, releases. I think Keisei is like a 0.6, 0.7. So the fact that you are able
also Keisei's 4 to 5 inches shorter than Steph Curry is.
That's going to be his downfall. Yeah, but I also think like that doesn't matter anymore because Keisei can finish at the rim, can shoot from the arc.
He shoots 86% from the line. He shoots in the 40% from three. And like just imagine like the team that he's on right now, Nebraska, all these teams that he's playing against are game planning for him. He is the number one game plan when any team plays against Nebraska. And so take that away if he wants to pursue his career into the NBA, at least not until he proves himself. I don't see it happening, unfortunately, but he's not going to have that attention that players and the coaches won't game plan for him like they do in college. And so hopefully that frees him up a little bit more. He can hopefully he thrives off of that. And so like you see what he can do when he gets doubled and face guarded immediately, and he's more than 50% of the other team's game plan. It'll be interesting to see when he's the 8th or 9th piece coming off the bench, in a G League game. Like how can he produce in that situation, because he's proven himself to be probably the best shooter in the country.
That's very, very factual. We talked a little bit too that the wind's great, right? We got to stay going up this mountain that we're going up. I am a little bit worried about our game against Iowa tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, tomorrow night.
Yeah, we had quick turnaround after the Wisconsin to the Purdue, and then you gave 110% against Purdue, and you have a 2-day window until you play in Iowa City against Iowa tomorrow night at 8:30.
I think it's going to be a very challenging game for us. I really do. I think that we're still going to be on that cloud 9 factor, and
you hope that they can bottle up some of that, the positives and the emotions from the Purdue game, and they can transfer it over to the Iowa game. We've seen that our team is deep enough and we have enough scorers that offense we can rely that we can get some offense on any night. It's as long as our defense travels, that's what's the big thing. That defense that we saw against Purdue, we saw it against Indiana, and we came out with the win.
K-State,
we had that. Oregon State, we absolutely stomped them. They had like 23 points in the first half, or even less than that. It was that Minnesota second half, that Creighton game, and then that Wisconsin game. The 3 losses that we have this year. Let's not forget, we're 12-3, just beat the number 1 team in the country, and we're not even in the top 25. That's for another conversation. But yeah, no, it's our 3 losses. They're not bad losses, and they were all really because of the lackluster defensive effort.
Yeah, I just kind of to your point, I hope that we just pick out the good, pick out the bad. I think Fred Hoiberg does a really good job of kind of keeping the team grounded. I really do believe so.
He's a professional. He does everything professionally. He's been
all
the coaches and all the players that have ever played under him continue to praise him and thank him for how he runs stuff and how he treats things. a professional in all assets. So
He's our guy.
yeah, it's his best team that he's ever in the 5 years he's been here at Nebraska. This is his best team, like team as a whole. It's the deepest roster he's ever had. It's the most scoring options he's ever had. Um, and really, with this Purdue win, is going to carry you a long way into Selection Sunday. And they already predicted, what do we have, 12, 13 wins this season?
Yep.
They said if we can get to 20 to 22 wins, you're a lock for the NCAA tournament. If you go 500 or better in the Big Ten, you're going to be a lock for the
It's because we're
NCAA tournament.
The Big Ten just that deep this year.
Yeah, it's the Big Ten. You can say it's a little down, but this year compared to last year's, but just as a whole, the whole conference, there's not like pretty much every team in the Big Ten is ranked at one point in the year, if not for the majority of the year. And so some teams like the Big East or the Big 12 or the SEC, like you have those really, really tough top 6, 7 teams, and then you have those dog shit teams at the bottom. The Big Ten doesn't really have that. So no win is going to be an easy win, and you definitely can't lose against the ones that you're favored, but that winning against Purdue is going to take you a long way. So as long as you don't shit the bed, it's looking like a postseason for Nebraska basketball this year.
Yeah, but I'll tell you too, the more that, I hate to say this, but like the more that Creighton keeps losing, that makes that Creighton loss look bad.
But the rankings really like Creighton. We have a better record than them, and they're still 23. They were 14 the other day, so they'll be a quad 1 win. We're hoping K-State eventually towards the end of the season, they're kind of figuring stuff up, will be a quad 1 win. Michigan State, it's always January, February, Izzo, and then April. He's the king of March. So you expect Michigan State to end up being a quad 1 win at the end of the year. And then, of course, number 1 Purdue is a quad 1 win. So it's all going to work out towards the end. Nebraska doesn't have any favoritism when it comes to RPI or Ken Palm or any of those rankings. But, I mean, it's going to, our
we
schedule.
Just kind of put ourselves on the map with that win, though.
Yeah. It's more people are paying attention, and more of these wins will turn into quality quad 1 wins. And at the end of the season, our schedule and the makeup of our wins and the good wins we have and the small amount of bad losses, like it's going to put us into a good position. I think we could come out being like a 7 seed. I could see us being as high as like a 7-6 seed in the NCAA tournament if we don't completely ruin everything right now.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that like Juwan Gary, Casey, Hoiberg, Josiah, Rank, even like Fred Hoiberg, I think just the Hoibergs. Jeez, I just now find that kind of funny. Anyways, the Hoibergs included, I just don't see them allowing that to happen. Like, I think to your point, Fred is such a professional of just keeping everybody grounded, keeping everybody on the same page, of not letting the spotlight get too big for them. I think we'll be okay. I also don't know our schedule for the remainder of the year. I know we're going into conference play. We've already started it, but I know we play Iowa. Iowa's big, and Iowa City. We probably, we played Michigan yet? I don't think so.
No, but luckily for us, Michigan's kind of a dumpster fire this year. We talked about it before the podcast. The only other bigger dumpster fire in the college basketball is Louisville. I have no idea what's going on at Michigan. They're suspending their leading scorer, best player, their point guard, for 6 games, which means he won't be playing against Nebraska. Because I do believe I guess we don't play them until into February.
Okay.
February 10th. But from what I read today, the 6-game suspension for Michigan's best player is going to be the game after Nebraska, so he'll be out against Nebraska. But yeah, we got Iowa tomorrow, Rutgers, and in Piscataway, and Rutgers is always They're always tough nosed and they're hard to beat. They're never easy. Northwestern, they're also 12-3 this year. They were ranked in the top 10 to begin the season. They also beat Purdue. And then you got Ohio State, who's 12-4 as well. And then you got Maryland, who's 10-6. So it's not
It's not going to be easy.
No, there's literally, quite literally, no easy games remaining the rest of the year. Yeah, I'm trying to even look. The easiest game, which is crazy to say, the easiest game we have the rest of the season is either Rutgers or Michigan.
But even then, it's
and
still
even
not
then, you're
like
you're playing Rutgers and Michigan, and the well, hold on one second. I think it's the birthplace of college football is in
Rutgers.
Is in Piscataway.
You might be right. I think I've heard that before. But even then, like the coach,
Yeah, Rutgers is the birthplace of college football. Began playing at the site November 5th, 1938. So I guess that's not basketball, but they have donors, they have money. Like when you're
they have history.
They have history. So yeah, they've made the NCAA tournament like probably 3 out of the past 5 years, like if not more than that. So if the easiest teams you have remaining are Michigan and Rutgers, like yeah, that's tough.
Sounds like I'll be.
But just means if we can win these games, like we're gonna have a solid seed.
Yeah, we still got to go through the Big Ten tournament though.
Yeah,
which is not going to be easy either because we're just going to play these same teams again, which we'll probably end up drawing Purdue again. We either play Purdue in the semis or.
Well, luckily for us, that is the only game we play against Purdue this season. Is that one that we won at? So we have a game advantage over them. I don't know where we are in the standings. I think we're 4 or 5.
Thought we were 3.
Are we 3 right now?
I think we might be
I think
3.
It's kind of a cluster up at the top right now. And I know like Michigan State and Minnesota are on the hunt,
yes.
Close behind. And so really, I mean, like the top, I think by the end of the season, the 14 teams in the Big Ten, I could see 9 or 10 of them being ranked at the end of the season. So Big Ten is always going to be one of the best college basketball conferences in the country, whether they're down or not down in the beginning of the year, they always finish towards the top. But yeah, I mean, I've pretty much through this morning, I've been living on that high, that Nebraska basketball win.
Cool. So in other news too, Matt Rhule and company have gone 6 for 6 on the transfer portal and with recruiting. Obviously, it kicked off with Dylan Rhule, not really transferring, but decommitting from Georgia and then committing to Nebraska, come here. And then it started the domino effect of people wanting to come play with him. And so we had Texas's wide receiver Isaiah
Nair scored was Wyoming first and then had his big
breakout year and then transferred to Texas.
Yeah.
The one that kind of really surprised me was the Oregon running back Dante Dowdell.
Dante Dowdell, yeah, from Oregon. He was the backup running back for majority of last year, but he did appear in a lot of the games.
Especially when Oregon puts up 50, 60 points a game. He probably didn't get some reps. Florida offensive lineman, the guy who throws hands.
Yeah, he tried to punch a guy with a helmet on, but that's all right. You like having a little dog in your offensive lineman. I don't mind that. I'm sure Donnie Riola will get him straight if he ever acts out or anything like that. He also has a brother that's a running back on the roster, and so that's kind of been a common theme here.
Brotherly
love, yeah. Are you related to anyone that's good at sports? That's what Nebraska likes to say.
Do you have any sort of family ties in Nebraska?
Yeah.
Well, my great-great-great-uncle, it's like, yeah, you're coming here, man.
Yeah. But 6 for 6. So we got the Isaiah Nair from Texas, big-bodied 6'4" wide receiver. Jamal Banks from Wake Forest, also 6'4", big-bodied wide receiver. We got the 2 big-body wide receivers that we needed to kind of go along with the up-and-coming freshmen that we were starting to become a little bit of stars at the end of the season last year. And then you got the Micah Mazuka, from the offensive lineman from Florida. He rated top 10 in run blocking and then like top 20 in pass blocking. And then there was another stat that he was like number 1 in big time blocks. I don't know what counts for that, but someone counts those, and he was number one. So
my guess is probably like
pancakes
or something that like led to a big play, like a 20-yard gain or something like that. That'd be my assumption.
But he started pretty much every game at Florida, started every game at Baylor. He's got Power 5 experience. He's going to be plugged into an offensive line that's probably going to be the most experienced in all of college football. I mean, like, we're averaging 5 and 6 year guys on our offensive linemen. The youngest and most least experienced guy that is potentially to start would be Teddy Prohaska, who's 6'7", 6'8", like 400 pounds. So that's never a bad thing when that's your least experienced guy. I know he was kind of figuring things out, and he was kind of becoming a pretty good offensive lineman towards the end of the season when he was getting a little bit more reps and stuff. But
did you say the linebacker for Syracuse?
Yeah, I was getting to that one. Linebacker Stephon Thompson from Syracuse, 10 sacks, like 120 tackles for losses or something around there. Solid player, just a lot of experience in college football. And then he played under Tony White for a couple of years while he was there, while both were there. And so I don't know if he'll start or not, but he is definitely going to be a 2-3 like rotational guy. Linebacker was a position that we kind of needed with Nick Henrich leaving and Luke who was the
Reimer
other
graduating, and Heinrich is going. Heinrich just pretty much retired.
Retired, yeah.
He just had too many injuries,
and so you have guys that can fill that position that they've shown they can this past year, but you kind of needed that veteran leadership and someone that Tony White can trust, and that's exactly who former Syracuse linebacker Stephon Thompson is. And then someone that people, I mean, I know the coaching staff was high on, but the cornerback Blyle Hill from St. Francis, 3-star. He had incredible 40 time, just super athlete, and I think he was one of those players that is a projection, someone that is not on everyone's radar, but knows that if they don't grab him now, could be on everyone's radar.
I was not familiar with his game.
And and you just got to trust. When the coaching staff first came here and they did stuff like that, you're like, all right, I don't know about that one, but to me at least, I'm confident enough that the players that they are picking, whether they're from a JUCO or a small 7-man high school or a St. Francis University, wherever the hell that is, like, I trust their judgment of character and their judgment of football players. And so
I know we said it on an earlier episode of that guy that wanted more NIL money from Nebraska, and we're just like, that's all you wanted from us, you didn't care about, so we just kind of retracted our name. I think he decommitted from us.
Yeah, no, Matt Rhule is doing really good. I mean, every guy, all 6 of them basically that have committed, they're like, I just wanted to go place where I know it's going to be professional, I can get to work, and everyone has my best interest in me, and I'm not going to be lied to. Like, that Nebraska is going to be straight up. They're not going to lie to you. They're going to give you the best support and the best facilities and food, and like, you literally have the best of everything at your disposal, and the coaches care about your well-being. So
I also think, like, what I was going to say was, like, that offensive lineman or defensive lineman that decommitted from us because he, quote, got a bigger NIL offer from another school. Can't remember the kid's name. We talked about it on a previous episode, but I would love to do like a check-in on that kid, like, start of next year.
What we do is, instead of like the Texas A&Ms and those schools, they dish out millions and millions of dollars to their top players.
Yeah.
What Nebraska does is they dish out large amounts of money to their top players, but they make sure everyone else on that roster has at least some sort of income coming their way.
It's almost like everybody gets fed.
Everyone is getting fed. And so that's why you're getting a lot of these 3-stars and like maybe like lost the 4-stars that just like don't really know what to do, where to go. When they take the official visit to Nebraska, they see how genuine everyone is. I mean, Matt Rhule literally took unranked players, brought them to Temple, and put them in the NFL. If you can do that at Temple, you sure as hell can do it at Nebraska. And so convincing people in that aspect, I don't think is too hard for him.
And do you even know of a football coach or an AD that storms the court with his team?
Yeah, he was first one out there with his daughter in one hand, and then his daughter in his other hand had Trev Alberts, the AD. They stormed the court together. It's honestly,
That's what you want
you
to see
don't
from a
hear
coach.
about it and you don't see it. Like, you don't see the cohesion of the head coaches for all these sports and your athletic director all on the same page, all cheering for each other. It's making the process of us becoming better in football, like, it's expediting it. It's making going a lot faster when you don't have people butting heads, different ideas, different ideologies, and stuff like that.
Complete side comment. Just so you know, Nebraska's Adidas contract expires in 2 years. 2026, 2027 is like the estimated time. I would like to talk on probably another episode, either next week or the week after, whenever we decide to do it, of what are your thoughts on the contract situation? Of, do you believe we stay with Adidas? Do you think we go to Nike? Do you think we go to Jordan? Do you think we split? Meaning basketball is Puma and football is Nike. Like, I want to get your thoughts on that at a future time. But I want you to let that marinate, let it sit.
No, I did see it being thrown out a little bit, or at least I do. Whenever Nebraska, a lot of the times when Nebraska drops new gear, new shoes, whatever, you see people on the internet, including former players. I've seen many from former players begging the university to drop Adidas and to pick up Nike. We won't get super and deep into it, but we both know that Adidas is rapidly decreasing. Like,
yes.
their company is not doing not doing well. And yeah, I mean, really, the past couple of years, they just the styles and like they don't sign anyone to Adidas contracts anymore, like big name players, and yeah, they've definitely taken multiple steps down from their apparel game.
I'm curious. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit more on a future episode. I don't know, man. I thought this was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. There's a lot of things we didn't cover. Some things we'll probably bring up in the next podcast.
It's good to have you back, dude. It was a good break. I was really worried. So for those of you that live in the state of Nebraska that listen to us, we're currently in the middle of pretty much 2 snowstorms. We're supposed to get another 6 to 10 inches tonight into tomorrow and all day tomorrow. So actively recording with snowfall, but it's all good. I'll make it home. I got a truck. I'll make it home. But guys, if you have not yet, go to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, ALP Entertainment. It's the same logo, same name, say everything. Luke and I just put a video up the other day of us playing 21 with his brother Landon.
We got shorts, we got TikToks, we got longer videos, and we got our podcast. There's a lot of different ways that you can tune in and listen to us, watch us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we take feedback too. So like on every single episode, whether it's on YouTube, the shorts, here, wherever you want, leave us a comment. Let us know what you wanna hear from us. If we want us to have more guests, I know a couple of our listeners have said that they want more guests from us, but you know, it's a hurdle that we'll have to attack and jump over eventually.
We'll get Keyshawn back in here. We'll have him talk Eagles. I know that
that's a sensitive subject for him.
Yeah, their Eagles are kind of figuring some stuff out right now. They kind of choked their way out of the first and second seed.
I do want to, with that Nike and Adidas contract negotiation with Nebraska, I want to get Nate involved. I really want to get Nate's opinion. I think Nate would be a blast to talk about, kind of pick his brain because he has been such a Nebraska basketball fan for so long. So, Nate, you're listening, free up your schedule.
Yeah, we'll get Nate on here, and I know also one of the videos we want to do. Nate has quite the impressive card collection and memorabilia collection. We are very soon going to get out a video of some unboxing, some openings of some stuff, and just like a little bit of a tour of mostly baseball, but there's a little bit of everything in there. The history, his own little museum he has. So we'll get you guys a sneak peek of that. We'll get him on to talk a little bit about Nebraska basketball and any other sports topics. But you got anything else from you?
No, dude. Pretty happy, pretty content. So, guys, as always, stay fresh, stay crispy. Luke, you got anything else?
Nope. GBR.
Always, baby.
Always GBR.
All right, guys. Take care.
Peace out.